I don't know if any of you have ever made tamales with your family before, but it's a lot like what's going on in this picture right here. Everyone is responsible for a specific step in the process of making a tamal, whether it be adding the masa, or putting in the meat, or folding up the hojas, or like these ladies back here, drinking the beer. Each person is responsible for a specific step in the tamal making process. Now, if I were to come in here and say, all right, guys, let's do things differently. Let's have each person make a tamal all on their own. If I were to tell them to do that, they would get very mad at me, call me a tonto, and just kick me out of the house. Because that's not a smart way to work. These women know, and families all over town know, that you can make way more tamales much faster if each person is responsible for a specific task in making a tamal, rather than everyone making a tamal all on their own. Now, it turns out this way of working is not only efficient for making tamales, but it's efficient for making a lot of different products. And you can go from a small scale operation like this to much bigger scales as well. Now, this system that they've developed that we all know is referred to as specialization. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the objective is we will define specialization and its role in efficiency. And then our closing task is I will explain how specialization can make a job more efficient. So let's look at again what efficiency means. So efficiency is the best use of our limited resources to meet our demands. So this is what we strive for. We strive to be efficient, right? We got to take advantage of the best way we can our limited resources so that we can meet our wants. It turns out that when people specialize in certain skills or jobs, they can actually increase efficiency. So like in this picture down here, we have kind of some little factory crew or some kind of construction crew, and each person in the crew is responsible for a specific task. That's what we call specialization. Just like in the tamal making process, every person is responsible for a specific task. In other words, they're specializing in a certain task, and that actually helps to increase efficiency. Specialization occurs when you divide labor into specific steps of the production process, rather than each person doing all the steps on their own. And as I mentioned before, tamal making is one version of that, but another version is sandwich making, like they do at Subway. If you guys have gone to Subway, you know that they have individual workers that are responsible for specific steps in the sandwich making process, right? Whether it be the bread and the meat and the cheese or the vegetables and the dressing, someone responsible for giving you your drink and charging you up. So each person has a specific task rather than one person doing all those steps on their own. It's actually much more efficient to do it this way. Also, think of a band, right? Each person in the band has specialized in a specific skill, whether it be singing or playing guitar or playing the drums. And this is way more efficient and effective than saying one person doing it all on their own. If you've ever heard a one-man band, it sounds terrible because it's impossible for one person to be good at all these different things and to effectively do them all well completely on their own. So specialization really does help to make processes much more efficient and helps to increase production as well as a lot of other good things. So let's look at some of those good things. What benefits does specialization have? Specialization allows workers to be very good at doing a specific job. So when you specialize in something, It helps you to get better and better at doing that specific thing. Just like a basketball player, that's what they specialize in. And they become very, very good at playing basketball because that's their specialty. Specialization also creates an environment for more teamwork. So, going back to the tamal process, right? Because everyone specializes in something, everyone kind of depends on the other to make the final product. So, it requires this ability to work as a team whenever people are specializing. And typically, working as a team is seen as a very good thing, right? Specialization also makes producing a better quality product and or more products. So through specialization, you're able to not only produce a better product, but you're also able to produce more of that product. So it's kind of like a win-win with production and quality. And also specialization increases pay for workers. So typically, on the whole, specialization allows workers to get paid more. Well, how is that? Well, if you think about it, if you're producing more products of good quality, you're going to start making more money. The business or the company will start making more money. And in theory, because the business is making more money, it should be able to pay its workers better. Now, I know this isn't always the case, but in theory, this is how it should work out, right? If a business makes more money, then it should have more money to pay its workers. Okay, and here we have a picture of a farm here. And as you can see, this farm has specialized in growing just one specific type of crop. It's not like they're growing tons and tons of different types of crops like farms would do in the past, right? Now, farms have specialized. They focus on growing a specific crop and they get very good at making that crop. And look at how much production they're able to get simply through the act of specialization, on focusing on just developing one type of crop. All right, but specialization, of course, does have its drawbacks. So let's look at some of the drawbacks of specialization on a small scale. Work can be very monotonous or boring. And here I have a picture of work that's done, specialized work where these people, I guess they're like filing papers away or maybe doing some data entry. And yeah, I wouldn't call this the most stimulating work. And that can happen with specialization when you're just focusing on doing one task over and over and over again. It can get boring, it can get monotonous. Maybe there's not a lot of creativity involved in it. So that could be a problem with doing specialization on a small scale. It's also common that jobs that are specialized do have more injuries. And this kind of goes back to the idea of the job being a little monotonous or boring. You kind of go into autopilot, you stop really thinking too much, and that's where you can start to make a mistake. So if you're not really focusing on what you're doing just because you're kind of just running through the motions, you have a higher chance of screwing up and possibly injuring yourself. And also, specialized work, it's kind of common for specialized work to become mechanized. In other words, to be taken over by machines. So, for example, here we have a work floor of some car production line. It looks like in the 50s here. And you can see, you have a bunch of workers here, and each one has a specialized task, right? Maybe it's, adding the steering wheel, or this guy's like polishing the car. Everyone kind of has their own specialized task. Well, what are machines good at? Machines aren't good at doing tons and tons of different types of tasks. Machines are good at doing a specific task. So if you can get a machine to polish a car and just focus on that, that's something a machine can likely do, right? So this is our kind of modern day car factories, and you can see here we have machines that have taken the place of people, right? So their jobs have been mechanized because machines are very, very good at doing specific tasks. And of course, they can do it for much longer times with a lot more precision than people can. Now let's look at the drawbacks of specialization on a large scale. And a big one is countries that specialize in certain things maybe can depend too much on one resource. They become kind of resource dependent. And because of that, countries don't develop other types of industries, right? Because they just specialize in one thing. And a good example of that is Kuwait, which is a country in the Middle East. And you can see that Kuwait's economy is dominated by oil and gas. It makes up 38.6% of the economy, followed by a bunch of other kind of industries, but those pale in comparison compared to oil. And when a country specializes in one sector like this, that could be very dangerous because then what happens if that sector crashes, right? And we've seen that. We know oil prices rise and then they fall. And during a fall, that can really hurt an economy because they depend so much on that oil. So low gas prices, low oil prices can really hurt an economy that depends on oil money. All right, so that covers everything. Once again, we defined specialization and we looked at its role in efficiency. And then lastly, I want you guys just to kind of think about how is it that a specialization makes a job more efficient. Okay, maybe even think of like an example of how specializing labor in a specific job or task um, can make the work much more efficient.